Holy Jello, my dog. Going nearly 2 whole months without posting any videos at all, it gets me kind of depressed. Both for myself and, of course, you guys. I'm not forgetting about you. I mean, I know other YouTubers have gone longer and still remain with most of their fans, but still, it's long enough to really make an impact. So let's get back on the regular for a while. But in my nearly 6 years of doing these blogs, I have never once done one about everyone's favorite green all-star Shrek. And for anybody wondering who that green guy is on my shelf there, it was a mask I made in art a long time ago, and it's supposed to be Shrek. It was the best I could do. One of his ears fell off, if you couldn't tell from right here, but anyway. But speaking of green, I need to mention an interesting fact that I don't think I've actually mentioned before, but it's been an ongoing thing for a while. Let's talk about the thumbnails behind the blogs. But whenever I make a new episode, it's always important to me that the colors and hues are unique from the previous few. Like, let's take a look at Season 12, for example. This was the season that brought the banners into the mix, but you can see that, for the most part, each thumbnail is a different color than any surrounding thumbnails. The final episode of that season was green, and the first episode of this season is green. Therefore, we have 2 episodes touching each other that are the same freaking color. Yes, they are split into 2 completely different seasons, but the point is, this is a very rare and kind of irritating deal. It's just that Shrek didn't have all that great thumbnails to choose from, so I said fuck it and just chose the classic outhouse. I mean, at the very least, it is a darker shade of green when I dim down the screen, but you know, it kinda hurts. Anyways, enough jibber jabber jank. There is no movie out there that is more nostalgic to me than Shrek. And I know a lot of my generation has the same feelings. My older sister's first movie was The Nightmare Before Christmas, so unless you are like extremely old and you were grown up at a period where these films were starting to become a new thing, you probably have a really nostalgic film of yours as well. At first, this episode was going to be named The Forsaken Onion. You know, like the forsaken fruit from Adam and Eve, or the forbidden fruit, whatever the hell it is. You know the one. It's the one where they had thousands and thousands of trees they could eat fruit off of, and they chose to eat from the one and only one they were not allowed to.
You are made of stupid.
Yeah, that was kind of my intent for this episode. However, I decided to go with the opposite. Being that if this onion was ever eaten by an ogre, then it would transform them into a handsome human being. Because, you know, Shrek is already hideous as ass, so like, how can it get any worse? Some of Shrek's favorite foods are slugs, eyeballs, and onions. So you're probably thinking that if he were to eat this said onion, it would taste like garbage to him. It's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. One's wish can only be granted if they have to go through some sort of pain or trauma, whatever. But, no, that's not the case at all. Not in this fairy tale, motherfucker. Yeah, believe it or not, if Shrek happened to stumble across this onion, it would just taste like any other ordinary onion. It wouldn't taste any different. No differences whatsoever, he would just eat it and poof. This is not canon with any of the movies, this is just my own lore that I'm making up here, just in case you couldn't catch on. I mean, in the first movie it was stated that Shrek didn't want to be an ogre because people were always afraid of him.
People take one look at me and go, "Ah, help, run! A big, stupid, ugly ogre." They judge me before they even know me. That's why I'm better off alone.
But in the 4th movie, after people do accept him for who he is, he wants to go back to being hated and feared.
All I want is for things to go back to the way they used to be. Back when villagers were afraid of me, and I could take a mud bath in peace. When I could do what I wanted, when I wanted to do it. Back when the world made sense.
You mean back before you rescued me from the Dragon's Keep?
Exactly!
Yeah, I know it can be very difficult to know exactly what you want in life. You think you want this, but when you get this, you want that. When you get that, you want this, and then this turns into that. I get it. But in the end, though, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, green, or even rainbow. What matters is that you're a good person. And that's ultimately more worth it than being evil. Shrek was never evil, but people thought that about him. Shrek eventually does realize that in Forever After, and is thankful for what he had to begin with. But for the rest of this episode, forget about all that. Forget about it. Let's just say that Shrek did want to become a human being. And yeah, I know he became a human man for a brief period in Shrek 2 after drinking the magic potion, but we're talking a permanent change here. Where in the world would Shrek find such a thing? Well, somewhere out there, a fan decided to make a map of the continent that Shrek lives on. I'm not positive if this is canon or if they just made it up, but it is pretty interesting. You have the swamp, of course, and remember how in Shrek 2 it takes like many days, or hell, for that matter weeks, to get to the main kingdom of Far Far Away, which is labeled as Queen Lillian's on the map? Well, in the first movie, Shrek had the task of going to the Dragon's Keep to rescue the princess for Lord Farquaad, and it took him maybe a few days to get there on foot. Yet, it's not that much more far away than the actual kingdom. Something's not right here. If you live in Far Far Away, it's not going to be that far away. Oh, and on another note, who is King Gunter the Ninth? I don't remember him. In fact, I don't remember anything past this river in any of the movies. And try looking up Janice on a Shrek wiki. You'll get basically no information about it. What? Hopefully Shrek 5 will resolve some of the mysteries surrounding this chunk of land, because I don't know crap. Somebody please tell me if I'm mistaken. Please tell me if these actually were part of the movies, but I've seen all of them and I don't remember any of it. They can't be the place for Puss in Boots because they are in a different area completely, as confirmed by the ending of the second one of those.
Off to find new adventures and to see some old friends.
Ultimately, none of that matters. What matters is, where is the promised onion? If there is such a thing, which I don't think there is, but where is it in the kingdom? I'm betting it's in that area we haven't explored. Oh, not only that, but also, remember in the beginning of the first movie, that woman who tried to sell Donkey to Farquaad? That is our only clue of information as to where the heck Donkey came from. We haven't heard a damn thing else in like 24 years. It's time for an explanation. And I think they're making a movie surrounding that, a donkey movie, but the movie's not out yet, so hurry up. Oh, and you want more on top of that? What about the witch that cast a spell on Fiona when she was a little girl? Where does that witch live? Or where did she live? All of these unanswered questions most likely stem from that half of the continent we have never seen before. Unless maybe this really is just fan art and it's not a real map. My final verdict on the promised onion. Where do I think it is? Well, vegetables, like many of those, onions grow in dirt. Not on goddamn trees and motherfucking vines. They grow in shit and dirt. It's not in some underground catacomb with dozens of life-ending booby traps that take professionals like Indiana Ass Jones to get through. It's just somewhere in a regular field on the surface of the continent. In fact, I believe, personally, that this onion of magnificent power, if it's gonna be anywhere, it's in the exact field that Shrek and Donkey passed through in the first movie. Looking at the iconic scene with ogres and onions having layers, there were all sorts of vegetables being grown on that farm. And possibly it's not even an onion we're talking about, it may just be a gourd. In fact, yes, that very vegetable that Shrek steps on was the magical food. That right there. He unknowingly smashed it to pieces, therefore smashing his dreams. That is it. That was it. Pretty anticlimactic, Kale. But, to quote Nostalgia Critic,
I can't prove that I'm right, but you can't prove that I'm wrong.
Anyway, that was this episode. That was that vegetable, and I will see you around. Have a good day or something.